coming down to
Does he have it?
Medeiros is going to get it.
Oh, look at Tyson! They haven't got it!
He's on the outside line though, going into the fastest corner on the circuit. Surely this can't work.
Dominic Ligner has got a sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's caught back into play. Exactly, Miller's still start trouble. He's not second and change. All of a sudden, Miller's back in play.
Can Barry do it? Big Barry's going to do it. Big Barry!
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the Oran Park Raceway for round number 7 and 8 of the Tanso Racing Group GR86 series, the practice series. Of course, as we know today is a little bit easier. On Sunday we have the real event, but today we just have a practice run through. How is it going to go on Sunday? The drivers will get to know it all today, and they will basically run through how it will go. On the Sunday, they will get a feel for how it's going to go. They will practice the race, and they will basically gather some important information. It's not an event that they need to compete in for points, so no points are on display here this evening. Just a good practice event. Of course, with me in the booth is Callum Mileham again. Callum, welcome.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to this tonight. Should be some good racing, and looking forward to seeing some new strategies in play.
Oh, for sure. We were talking just in the green room about the weather in the Netherlands and in the UK. It's been a grim day here for me.
Yeah, I have to admit, it's the same over here as well. It's been raining pretty much from sort of midday onwards, and it's that kind of rain where it's not quite heavy, not too light. It's kind of in between, and it's just a pain, really, a royal pain.
As you can see on your screen now, we have the championships up. This is the pro standings. We're just quickly going to go over the top 10. Harry Fox is leading the way after Sunday on 226. Marcus Law in second. Aaron Kirby in third. Daniel Wareham in fourth, Mark Brown in fifth, Eugene Weber in sixth, Chris Round in seventh, Alex Fretwell in eighth, ninth, Neil Rocks, and 10th, Scott Crossstage. Of course, that's the top 10 for this evening. We'll quickly scroll through to the other pages where you can see where your favorites are. Of course, the only one without points in the pro standings, I was going to say is Michael Johnson, but that's not the case. James Clark, Jay De Vries, and Garrett Newton also without any points at the bottom of the standings. Going to the AM standings then, where James Bostock is leading the way. He did a good job last time out. Marcus Richardson in second, Jack Wyborn in third, James Pallett in fourth, James Howells in fifth. Reminds me of James Wild for some reason. Don't know why. Mark Proctor in P6. Stephen Parker Hamilton, the man with the famous surname, in 7th. Stuart Brearley in 8th. Mark Robinson in 9th. And Ayrton Hatfield in 10th. All in all, I would say, Callum, a competitive championship in every class. Now today, not every driver will be here. Not the full 60 grid field will be here. What we will have here this evening is just a good pack of drivers who will kind of want to see where they stack up against all the others.
Yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity for both amateur and pro to sort of battle head to head and not worry too much about the errors that may come with some driving mistakes, with any collisions or anything along those lines. Luckily, it's not going to affect the championship tonight, so it's a prime opportunity for really sizing each other up and seeing where you are on the grid ready for this event this Sunday.
And you've, of course, had some inside information about Sunday. How was the race on Sunday? Was it different than we experienced on the Thursday, or was it more of the same, really? Because I kind of feel like the only difference is that not every driver is on the grid for the practice race.
Yeah, so you still have your standout drivers. You still have those that have incredible pace around majority of the tracks throughout the season so far from what we've seen. It's definitely a lot more packed. The racing's a lot closer on the Sundays because there are more cars on track, but the enjoyment is just the same. And just the thrill of the racing is very similar. Obviously, it's a bit more relaxed on Thursdays, but the feeling and the thrill seeing the cars go around the track is just the same. And with a more packed grid, it just adds to the excitement as well when you've got cars going 3 sometimes even 4 wide when they do it very well, which we've seen a couple of times now, where the cars are going 3 to 4 wide in some of the corners. They've done some fantastic racing on the Sunday, so it's definitely worth a watch, I have to say.
Yeah, well, of course, talking about the racing out on track at the moment, Mark Robinson with a big slide coming out of the last corner. An exciting track, this one. Oran Park, a difficult one too. Not a lot of room for errors, really. So you have to be there about every time, really. 29, good racing number, by the way. I like that. That's my number. Mark Robinson rocking the 29. Great livery, by the way, too. But it's a track where you have to, you have to concentrate for the whole lap. There's not really a moment where your brain gets some time to kind of relax, and there isn't really a straight where you can do that apart from the start-finish straight, which isn't too long here at Oran Park. Talking about today here at Oran Park, 60-minute practice session is what we've already had this evening. Then a 20-minute open quali, which is, is what the drivers are busy with at the moment. Then we have a 10-minute race one, a 5-minute warm-up in between, and a 15-minute race two. So all in all, some great action. In total, of course, like I said, 25 minutes of racing action and 20 minutes of these GR86s on the edge of the grid. Mark Robinson is the first one who's going to come across the line to put in a time, and that time on the board is going to be he's across the line. We're going to see it in a second. Or was there an off track for Mark Robinson? I think there was no time at the moment set for him. Then the first one across the line will be Johnston. What time can he put in? There we go, 118.3. Not too long of a lap, I would say here, Callum.
No. I was looking at the pace in practice for some of these cars as well, and I was seeing some quick times of 116.5s. So it's just for the first couple of guys coming over the line, it's still very close to that quickest time in the practice session. One thing I will say about this track is with the elevation changes, it'll be interesting to see who uses the elevation changes in the track to their advantage in terms of braking and in terms of overtaking as well, because with the elevation changes in the track, there's also going to be some slight camber changes around some corners, as you can see going slightly downhill there with Johnston. And continuously slightly going downhill every corner before we start to make our way back up around the left-hander before we come into the last 2 corners before the home straight. So it's going to be very interesting to see who can try and use the geographic map of this track to their advantage rather than relying on their brakes and just general skill all the time, really.
Yeah, well, John Sylvester, good evening, guys. Good evening, John. Welcome to the Tanso Racing Group GR86 series. It's of course the practice evening here, so no points, nothing really to fight for. Just you know, how do they say? Just pride really to fight for it this evening, and confidence also. Who's gonna have the confidence going into Sunday to perform in the main event? Mark Brown at the moment is having some good confidence about a second ahead of the rest of the field. However, Marcus Richardson just pops in a time 7/10 off of Mark Brown. Still for Mark though, quite a considerable margin quicker. But yeah, I know John likes these GR86 cars. Also likes well, every car in iRacing. I've driven with John a couple of times now. John is a great guy to drive with. Of course, part of the Platinum Racing team too. So yeah, always enjoyable to have him here. Welcome, John, once again to this evening's coverage of the Tanso Racing Group GR86 series practice run through basically. And Mark Brown across the line. Is he going to improve? Not quite this time round. Keeps it on a 115.580. 2/10 behind that though. Just popping in a time is Carl Lukeman. And he does well to get within 2/10 of Mark Brown, but it looks like Mark Brown is the man to beat here this evening.
Yeah, Mark Brown's had some good pace throughout the season. Just looking over at some of the names we have there, Mark Proctor as well, Kostrick in there. You got Bostock coming out at the bottom of the pack at the moment. Looks like with the time difference, there's been a little accident, maybe a spin out on the track during that lap. But there's definitely some quick boys out there today, and it'll certainly be interesting and very tight time-wise as well each lap. So I think it's going to be people waiting for the mistakes of the cars ahead and trying to pounce on those as we see Carl Lukeman go off, and that's the exact the exact demonstration that I was after. Really, it's little mistakes like that people are going to be able to pounce on in the race, and I think that's all it's going to take for people to gain some critical overtakes on this track, because like you say, it's a tight track, there's not many straights, there's not many overtaking points that are clear and easy to use, so it's going to be challenging for those out there today.
14 drivers will be out on the grid. Andy West is one of them. Hasn't set a lap time yet. He has about 13 minutes to still do so. But for Andy West, it's now time to, or he has to set a time on the board. Really, he does that now. Goes into a 1:18.73 for Andy West. Not too bad still, however, though 3.1 seconds off. But some drivers haven't set lap times yet. Gary Linton, Aaron Kirby, and those are both drivers that you know, they're no slouches in these cars. Really, they know how to go about in these cars. They've driven it now for the whole season, basically for round 1 till 6, and you know, round 7 and 8 no different really here at Oran Park. Just how much have you seen these drivers improve throughout the season?
Yeah, it's fantastic to watch some of these names as they get through the season. They develop, and like I've mentioned before, with the perks with Tanso's, you get a lot of drivers in here that are in quotation marks, they're rookies. They're new to this league system, and it's potentially their first league. So watching these guys go from being maybe 10 plus seconds off the pack to then getting within a couple of seconds of the pack, or within a second every single race, it's fantastic to watch, because you can see them progress throughout just one season. So what will happen over a couple of seasons, we could see some very quick times and some very, very skilled drivers by the end of this season going into next.
For sure, Mark Brown still at the top of the standing so far. However, Scott Gosreach with a purple sector in sector number 3. So he's one to look out for. You can see on the bottom now who's purple, who's yellow, everywhere in any sector. 5 sectors here this evening. Short, long sectors really. You can see on the right hand side of the track map, the red dots is where his sector ends and the next sector begins, and then the red stripe you have on the start-finish straight, that's the start-finish. So from that side, of course, anti-clockwise this circuit, we start to count in terms of sectors. So the first sector, one of the longer ones. Sector 2, quite a short one. Then sector 3, more the same. Sector 4, a little bit longer. And then sector 5, another short sector. So sector 1 is the most important sector really, but also the easiest, because you have a straight and basically 2 corners in it.
Yeah, I think I was just looking at the times there as you were talking, and Mark Brown at the top there with a 15.5, then Cole Lukeman just 2 tenths behind, 7 tenths behind that is Richardson, with Kostrick now splitting up that gap and going into third, 5 tenths behind the leader. It's looking at the gaps between each car, there's definitely going to be a tight pack here at the front, which is going to bring some fantastic racing for just a practice session really. This is going to be some on the edge of your seat stuff really, and it's going to be fun to watch, that's for sure. It's good to see drivers are still improving though every lap, because there's a lot of the time you'll find some people will do a lap and then they can't get near it for the rest of the session, but these guys are constantly improving every single lap. It's fantastic.
It's usually what I do, to be honest, Callum. I just have a 1 lap wonder, and then I'm like, wow, how did I do that? And then I try to go out, and then for the first 2 sectors I'm like, okay, I can keep up. I know where I can gain time in that lap, because even if I have a 1 lap wonder, it's not a good lap at all. I'm gonna be honest here. I'm like 2K, and that's where I should be. Not any higher or lower, really. It's where I should be. And then I go out, do that 1 lap wonder, and then I go out again, and I'm like, okay, first 2 sectors, I'm up with it. Yeah, I can keep up. Now the last corner is where I can gain my time, and then sector number 3, just for some reason completely lose concentration, and then for the next lap just can get nowhere near that time. Just start over pushing the car really, which is easily done. And if you start over pushing, you're going to lose time with the car. The car is going to be on edge and over the edge most of the time, which is not always good, as Mark Proctor with a purple sector goes into the barrier. Now, I am asking myself, is there a reason he had that purple sector? Because he had a 9.5, well, second sector, and the rest is all about the 16.5. So he's either found the boost button in this GR86, or he's got some of the track.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to make sure the stewards keep an eye on that one. I'm not too sure what's happened there, but I have to say one thing's noticeable already in this session, and it's something that involves the racing, but not exactly the main focus. And I touched on this last week, but some of these guys that are out here today, and we didn't see last week around Brands Hatch, but some we have, and they're not in the same liveries. I've noticed there's some really nice looking cars out there today, and they're really bright as well. I've already spotted one of my favourites, so it's going to be really nice. It was a comic one. It was like a classic sort of, I want to say 90s comic look. I'm not too sure who it was. I know they were a fifth at one point, but I don't know if they still are. But it was a really nice looking livery.
Was it this one?
No, it was a pale blue comic livery. Not too sure who that was now, to be honest.
Well, I'm going through them, and I don't know if they're still out on track now. Here we go.
There they are.
Yeah, you have them. Kostrick.
Yeah. Yes, I think Kostrick has my vote for the best livery so far this session. That is, I really like the sort of classic comic look. I'm guessing that's what it is. It's what it looks like to me. It's very nice, but I have to admit, you've got to pay respects to Mark Browns as he comes across the line there, obviously paying tribute to Ken Block.
Yeah.
So sure. you've got to put your hands up to that and respect that livery.
Yeah, for sure. You know. Yeah. Just. I'm not gonna comment on it because, you know, it was a legend, and that's all said basically. Don't want to go into that too deep. It's a long time ago now, but of course he's dearly missed in the motorsport, and will forever. Mark Brown then still leading the way, like we said. It's you know, that 15.5 was set at the beginning of the session, and even he himself hasn't really been able to improve on that. Aaron Kirby, he's been out for his first laps at the moment. It's not doing too badly. Aaron Kirby is up there in the championship, let's put it like that. Is up there in the fight and across the line. Where is he going to put himself in purple last sector? Can he get close to the lap time from Mark Brown? He can. And all of a sudden, with just one lap, it's Aaron Kirby who's on the pole position. The 1:7 from Aaron Kirby. I don't think anyone expected that, really. No purple sectors except the last one, but that just shows you again, you don't really have to have the fastest sector of anyone in every sector to put down the fastest lap time.
No, for sure. I was looking at watching Kirby with you just then, and while you're talking, don't want to interrupt, but I was going to say Kirby is definitely one to watch for these races. Kirby had a good display at Brands Hatch last week when we covered that on the Thursday. Fantastic pace to claw his way through the pack and get up and fighting around the podium. Quite a lot of last week, actually. So Kirby's definitely one to watch out for pace-wise. Consistent pace as well. A few lockups there on track, but there's some strong drivers out there today. So I'm really looking forward to this battle at the front, but also the battle at the back, because all over the grid, the cars look close. There's not much splitting them. And those that have bigger times than the pole position, it's certainly going to be tight, because there's, say, 14 cars that are putting a time at the moment. 14 cars, there's not a lot, so there's a couple of mistakes maybe from the front pack, and you could be last and find yourself first after a couple of corners, especially around this track being so small as well. So, like I said, just pencil in them mistakes, but the racing's going to be very tight today, so I'm really stoked for this one.
We have a question in chat for you, Callum. Is it fixed or is it open setups this series?
So I believe they started off fixed, and after recent discussions, they have opened them up, and they tried out on Brands Hatch the open setups, and I believe we are still using the open setups because that seemed to go fairly well. So I believe that we are now seeing this as an open setup series. There is more talks about other things going on in the future about extending the races as well, race times to 20-minute races or 30-minute races, but to see that, so we have to get in touch with the Tanso boys and see what's going on there. But I believe what we are running at the minute is still currently an open setup, so that will be another thing that plays into the hands of some of these drivers today, hopefully, is getting the right setup for this track.
Now I do know from the short experience that I had with this car, and the information that I gathered from my teammates, because they were very active in this car. It's a great one-make series, this GR86, that they liked it more with an open setup. Usually a fixed setup didn't quite suit them well, and this seems to be a car where setup is really a big thing from driver to driver. Every driver has his own preference in this car, really, which with the MX-5 was not ever the case, really. You could go for a fixed setup in the MX-5, and like you had a half of the grid that liked it, and the other half of the grid, they didn't dislike it, but they were unsure how to feel about it. And with this car, you have drivers that just completely dislike how the car feels. So that's something different to the MX-5, as we see. The 68 go off. That is Sean Clark. He's off the track, and but it's completely different to any other one-make series. So I don't know, John. If you want to get yourself involved, head over to the Discord. I'll post the link in chat in a second, and you can maybe take part too.
I have to admit, it's a good league to get into if you're looking to start up getting into iRacing leagues. Because official racing, don't get me wrong, official racing is good, but leagues it's a lot more enjoyable, I'd say, because you're always fighting for points, and it's some leagues have different point systems, but this one's fantastic no matter what level you are, whether you're beginner, experienced. It's always a good league just to jump into, and it's always a fantastic race. And the GR86 is some good tracks out there on display for this season as well, so got a lot to look forward to coming up in the near future.
Andy West, who's just gone across the line, 8.3 seconds behind on the quickest lap time of the session. He had to slow down. I think he had a slowdown coming out of the last corner. Mark Brown is once again going to go at it. This is his last lap, his last shot at victory, or at victory qualifying session, at the pole position. That's what I'm going to have to say. His last shot at that pole position, because I don't think he has time for another one after this one. Gary Littleton is improving in P42, needs about 4 seconds to improve to pole position, so I don't think that's going to happen for Gary Littleton. However, he can gain some positions across the line from Mark Brown. Doesn't need a lot, and I don't think he's improving, judging by the fact that he's swerving from left to right.
No, it's not looking like an improvement there. Getting the last few cars across the line here soon, but it's been a good qualifying session. You can see there's a lot of cars close, especially looking at the top 5, 6, 7. David Smith getting in there just under a second, and then you got from Bostock down, really they're all close there as well. So there's definitely going to be one big pack, possibly 2 medium-sized packs splitting the grid in half. So it'll be interesting to watch here tonight.
Well, we're going to have the grid ready for you. There it is. It's going to be Aaron Kirby, who was in chat a little bit earlier on. He said, "Hi, chaps. It's an open setup, but fixed for everyone," if that makes sense.
Yes, I know what he's on about. I'll let you go through the grid, but I'll explain that after.
Aaron Kirby is in the pole position, and it is Mark Brown alongside him. And then alongside that, it is Carl Lukeman behind him, Scott Kostridge, Mark Proctor in P5, Marcus Richardson in P6, David Smith in P7, P8 for James Bostock, Mark Robinson in P9, Nicholas Newtonen, I don't know how to pronounce that, Newtonen is what I'm going to go with, Sean Clark in P11, and Johnston in P12. Then behind that we have Andy West in P13, and rounding off the grid is Guy Linton in P14. Let's head down to the grid, because it's almost going to be time to go lights out. A rolling start, of course, here for the drivers. But quickly, Callum, explain what he means with that.
So with the open setups but fixed for everyone, there's a couple of setups that have been pre-made. Now these pre-made setups, these drivers can pick between those, and
okay.
that's why it's semi-open, semi-closed with the setup. So it is fixed to an extent. Like, you've got 3 or 4 to pick from, and that's your choices. So that is how the setups are done.
Alright, that is nicely done, of course. So a couple of setups for the drivers to choose from. Not completely open, but open for a bit. It's going to be green and green for race number 1. 10 minutes of action here. Of course, you can see on the left-hand side, in our eyes, the best looking livery on the grid here this evening. It's Aaron Kirby who's going to lead them away. Mark Brown and P2 is going to look around the outside of the first corner. He's not going to get it, and he's going to go off. Mark Brown is off, our second place man is off the grid, or is off the road, and he's going to drop all the way down to P13 maybe. Yeah, it is P13, all the way down to last position. Aaron Kirby, however, leading the way, and an early lead already for him.
Yeah, it was a fantastic start from Kirby there. Unfortunate for Mark Brown, looking to probably try and get out the inside or side by side going into turn 1 and 2 there, but it's really difficult because you miss your braking on that first turn, and it can get a bit chaotic because then you may over brake on the car, or as Mark Brown did there, lose it when you go into the second left-hander. So it's unfortunate, but hopefully he can bring that back and try and get back in the fighting chance of a top 10 finish here, hopefully.
Well, Carl Lukeman is going to try and chase him down. He's doing that at the moment. That gap down to about 7 tenths. If he can keep it stable and at least kind of keep Aaron Kirby honest for that first position, and kind of drag the drivers behind him along with him. Mark Proctor at the moment hanging on to the slipstream from Carl Lukeman. Scott Kostridge just behind that in what we think is the best looking car here this evening. Here we go. What a beautiful looking car that is. I have to say, I like it. I like it a lot in the 155. The 44 behind that for Marcus Richardson, already losing a little bit of touch with the top 4. But behind that, look at that train after him. David Smith, Mark Robinson are very close together. Behind that, it is Nicholas Newton. Who's that round? I think that's Marcus Richardson. It is.
That is, yeah.
Oh, he's going to come back on the track. The 66, though, of James Bostock, just about able to stop. And if I was Mark Richardson, or Mark Richardson now, would give that position to James Bostock. And he does so because, well, talking about rejoining the track, that's an example of how not to do it.
Yeah, especially on a corner like that, when drivers are committing to their lines, the best thing to do is just sit on your brakes, sit still, and let some of the passing cars go by. As soon as you see a gap, that's when you should be able to move. The key thing is, obviously, as a driver, if you can, have your relative up or have some sort of communication with a spotter, see where the nearest car is to you before you start making a move.
Now, I do not believe this, because as you can see, on the bottom right-hand side of the weather table on the right-hand side, it says that the track temperature is 63 degrees Celsius. I've never even seen that in iRacing. 63 degrees Celsius. Maybe that's something after the new update, but 63, that's almost baking. You could bake an egg on that.
Yeah, even for Australia, I think that beats the limits, because we are in Australia, so I'd expect it to be quite hot, but not
Lukeman
no,
round!
That's not what we want to see. Lukeman's been spun. Was that by Aaron Kirby at the top? Was that the battle for the first?
This is the replay here. He overtook him. Around the outside goes Carl Lukeman. Beautiful move. But then after that, we're going to stay with Lukeman. He's going to get a good exit. And he's just going to outbrake him, I think, into the next right-hander. There we go. There's the contact. And then he's going to park it on the apex. Yeah, he parked it on the apex and he almost got turned there already. Now we're going to stay with him. The next right-hander is probably where he's going to get turned. Is it not? Yeah, it is. He just didn't quite have the exit speed that Aaron thought he would. And that's it. Goes round and then has to wait. Look at this. Has to wait for the whole field to get past. And this is how you should rejoin the track. Wait for everyone else to get past. Then rejoin the track safely.
Yeah, fantastic there from Lukeman. Good to see safe rejoin. Your leader's still Aaron Kirby at the moment, though, after that slight knock on the door there for Carl Lukeman on the rear of his car. But, I mean, apart from a couple of little taps there, I have to admit, so far this has been really clean from these drivers. I thought it was going to be a lot closer than this and more side by side, so it's definitely an improvement from last week, I have to admit.
Aaron Kirby still leading the way ahead of Mark Proctor and Scott Crossstage, of course. Crossstage now looking to eye up Mark Proctor ahead of him. Proctor has lost that slipstream to Kirby. He's trying to get back into it, but Kirby not as dominant as I thought it would kind of be. When I saw those times, I thought that he, you know, only, Mark Brown was the one I was thinking about, was the only one really in his league, but seems like just Mark Brown just has a lot more pace than Aaron Kirby has. Last time round, an improvement for Aaron Kirby though, 1:16.0, but already long before that, a 1:16.0 now for Mark Brown, so he's on a comeback drive. Trying to get past Nicholas Newton now.
Gotta be careful.
Bit of a slide indeed. And if there's one thing you don't want on a track that is 61 degrees, we're going to take a look at it again because I feel that was wrong. No, 63 degrees even now. It's gotten even hotter. This is unbelievable.
How these tyres are coping on this track, I do not know. It's incredible to see.
Also, what I found quite weird to believe is that the fact that the ambient temperature is 26 degrees. Usually those go hand in hand. You usually see about a track or an ambient temp of 38 degrees when you see a track temp of about 50. But wow, this is unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it.
Well, if the temperature is true, is that playing in Mark Brown's favour? Or is this just raw pace? Has he found something out that these other drivers haven't and using a different setup to the rest?
That might be the case, and there might be one setup that might work better in these temperatures than the others, and that's maybe the one that Mark Brown has gone for. Now, this is so interesting because the drivers will now try and figure out which kind of setup they want to have for Sunday, because Sunday is going to be the exact same as it is today. 63 degrees track temp. Because this is literally a practice run-through of how it's going to be on the Sunday. So everything will be the same, including the track temp. So everything is now just finding out that the setup that Mark Brown has is the one to have at these temperatures maybe. So isn't it maybe in Mark's interest to sandbag a little bit, to not give away the fact that he has this setup that you need to have? Now, I don't think that's going to happen because we've already shown it on the broadcast. The fact that he's super quick at the moment in these temperatures, but like, this is incredible. The pace that he has compared to everyone else, he's about a second quicker lap than everyone else.
Yeah, I have to admit, it's very impressive, but I will say, hats off to him for playing the patient game there behind Nicholas Newton. It's very good to see that he's not trying to be overly aggressive and push too hard for the position. They're having some nice tailgate racing. It's great to see. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here, though, coming into the first turn side by side, because you've got to get your braking point spot on. And if you miss it, chance for a big collision or an off track. And there's your evidence right there from Nitland, straight off into the wall, bit wide.
Ouch. Nicholas has, well, it was always going to happen going too wide into that first corner, let's be honest. But was it really Nicholas? Was it in Nicholas' interest to fight that? You could also say he's finding out now for Sunday that you cannot go into that corner side by side. And this is what I mean. There's so much information here to be gathered that it's almost worth a shot to, even if Mark Brown is quicker by a second a lap than everyone else here. It's almost in his interest to try and run side by side with him, see where he can hold him off and where Mark Brown is considerably quicker, because this is all information for Sunday when it's really going to count, and that's what I found so interesting. You're seeing drivers just find out where the limits of the car and where the limits of the track are.
Yeah, it's really.
Oh, Seems like we've lost Callum for a bit. Don't know why Callum.
I wonder if he's maybe
There he is.
trying to picture different points and just imagine what it is like with clean air on this track. Maybe try to get some sort of race pace for potentially a pole position for Sunday. Obviously, he's got some tough contests up against Aaron Kirby, as you can see, leading now over 2 seconds the gap between first and second place there. So it's definitely going to be a tough fight against these two, and I think it will be the entire season, to be honest. No matter what track you go to, what setup they use, it's always going to be tight between these two drivers, because I think you take the setup and all the conditions away, and you're going to have two very close drivers indeed in terms of skill level. So it's going to be fantastic to watch these guys come around.
It's Aaron Kirby, though, who's going to win this first race. Aaron Kirby, it looks like he has, well, the best papers going into the Sunday race, number 1. Aaron Kirby wins ahead of Mark Proctor in P2 and Scott Kostridge in P3. David Smith in P4. And Mark Brown is going to come through after a disappointing opening lap to still finish P5, but enough positives from Mark Brown really to take here. And once again, I'm going to show it to you that I'm not lying. 63 degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit, no Celsius track temp. And well, the drivers are coping with it out on track, and they're finding it difficult too, but it seems like everyone's coping with it. But Mark Brown, what a pace he had in that car. It might be setup, it might be driver, we don't know. It's almost impossible for this to only be driver with the pace that he was showing. So enough positives from Mark Brown to take there. We're now going to go into a 5-minute warm-up session. And what can we take really from that as we get the results up from the race? There we go, Aaron Kirby P1, Mark Proctor P2, Scott Kostridge P3. That's a top 3 ahead of David Smith in P4. Like I said, Mark Brown, enough positives for him to take in P5, P6 for Mark Robinson, Gary Linton in P7, P8 for Nicholas Newton, and P9 for Carl Lukeman, James Bostwick in P10, and Marcus Richardson in P11, Sean Clark P12, Andy West P13, and Johnston in P14. What can we take really from that? Because the only thing that I seem to remember from that is the fact that Mark Brown was just blitzing the field, even though he might have had a damaged car after lap 1.
I think from that, I mean, you said it yourself, the main thing we could take from that is Mark Brown's pace around here is very strong. So Sunday, I imagine, even with the full pack on the track, it's definitely going to be a case of he's looking at a podium finish, or at least a top 5 finish. But when you're up against the likes of Kirby, and there's a few others in this league that aren't available for these practice sessions, but are there on the Sundays, when they get their practice in, I have to admit, there's a lot of strong people up there at the top of the grid, so it brings close battling on track. And one thing to take note majorly here in prep for Sunday is turn 1 and 2 are so dangerous. At the minute, we only have 14, I think, cars on track.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Sunday, you're looking at potentially 20 plus, 30 plus, sometimes even up to 40 cars on track at a time in these leagues. So when they go into those turns, as you can see from race 1, going in side by side, going in 2 wide, you certainly can't push it 3 wide into that corner, because that's very risky, because you come in first left-hander, which is a very slight left-hander, before you come into a more abrupt left-hand corner. That braking is crucial, and you've seen twice from race 1 that if you don't get it spot on, or go a bit too far wide while braking, you're off camber, you're on the marbles, and everything just goes against you once you're on that outside line. So that it's critical to get the inside line if you are battling into the first corner, but that's one thing that people aren't going to try and do. Hopefully Sunday, it'd be nice to see some battles, but I think those turns are risky, Dan. I'm not too sure that is the place to do it, I have to admit.
Well, we've had about 14 cars on track here this evening, and about half of them have found the gravel trap or the grass on the outside of turn 1 or 2. So I think you're completely correct with that. Also, John in chat says, great recovery drive by Mark. And I do agree with that. Mark, like, wow. It's unbelievable. Dropped all the way down to P14 on lap number 1. Had to wait for everyone to get past. Had to get back on track and to come back, especially with 63s. I just can't mention this enough. I've never seen this. 63 degrees track temp. And that is Celsius, not Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit, this is common, 63 degrees. This is just average, but... Wow, just no words for it, basically. No words at all, and the drivers are coping with it. Mark did it best, and what a recovery drive. I'm just going to have to agree with John in chat. A great recovery drive by Mark. And I think not only me, but everyone else can agree with that. From P14 all the way up to P5 again. It's just... Like, what more can you ask for? Yes, you can ask for it to be P1, but, like, you have to be realistic, too. And the fact that Aaron Kirby and all the rest above that were just a little bit too quick to catch. Just, you have to be realistic, too. And I think he did all he could.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Aaron Kirby has good pace, but he has good consistency as well. And that's one of the key things within iRacing in general, and just in the smaller engine cars is well, in all cars, to be honest, consistency is key, and smoothness as well. So the smoother you are, more consistent you are every lap, the quicker you're going to get naturally. And I learned that the hard way. I thought, you know, keep pushing. It's not the way to do it.
No.
It's just be smooth, calm your head, and just drive. Like, just try and put everything behind you, just drive, and you'll get quicker naturally. And watching the consistency of Kirby against the, I want to say aggression, but at the same time I don't, of Mark Brown. Not aggressive on the movement, but aggressive in clawing that time back. A very good push from Mark Brown. I have to admit, if it was anything like F1, Mark Brown would be driver of the day currently. It was a fantastic drive from him, but watching him claw that time back is really, really fascinating to watch. So it does interest me if there are any accidents, say, come up Sunday, or even in race 2 here today for our last practice race of the day. It'll be interesting to see if anyone can do the same as Mark Brown and claw such a gap back before the end of the race. Now, these races are short, granted, but yeah, just to cover that distance in a short race, in a short amount of time, it was a very exceptional drive. And he looked very strong in practice as well, being in amongst the top in there.
Well, the grid is up for race number 2. Johnston will start from pole position ahead of Andy West and P2, Sean Clark P3, Marcus Richardson P4, James Bostock P5, Carl Lukeman P6, Nicholas Newton P7, Guy Linton in P8, P9 for Mark Robinson, and P10 for Mark Brown. P11 for David Smith and Scott Kostridge in P12. P13 for Mark Proctor, and Aaron Kirby completes our full reversed top 14. Let's go down to the track where the drivers will be getting ready to start this race. It's going to be Johnston from the pole position ahead of Andy West. 15 minutes of racing ahead of us. The last 15 minutes of practice for these drivers. 15 minutes to figure out what you're going to do. And he went really early, did Johnston. Behind that, though, Marcus Richardson, I think it is, in the 44. A brilliant start from him, already challenging Richardson and Bostock into turn 1. They're 4 wide going into turn 1. Surely this can't work. And it's not. P2 and P4 both go off. And he's lucky not to collect anyone into the wall for Marcus Richardson. 4 wide into turn 1. That was never ever going to work, Callum.
Outcome. I will take note though that Mark Brown and Sean Clark didn't make it into the race this time. But one thing to point out, Aaron Kirby, what a start from Aaron Kirby, by the way. Up so many positions, started near the back of the grid. And
wow! Unbelievable!
Fantastic first 3 turns of this track as well. So that will definitely be one to watch back later on today, but that was a fantastic. If he can remake that on Sunday, it's going to be a fantastic race for him.
Here we go. He starts from actually very far back. He takes no positions at the initial start, but then here we go into turn 1. Up front, you can see the rest is 4 wide, and that is never going to work. You can see all the cars going off. Keep an eye on the red and black car in the middle. Look at that. It just cuts its way through the field. Then after that, more and more cars going off. And there we have it. Up to P3 you go. That's how you do it.
It's fantastic because, again, it's the one thing that I said. If you get the inside line, you have the advantage upon everyone else. And on that start straight, Aaron Kirby, first thing he done was move over to the left-hand side, which is the inside for the first 2 turns. And it was fantastic for him because he got all those positions nailed because everyone was sliding out on the outside and a couple on the grass on his left-hand side there. But it was an awesome start. Got that inside line nailed and he had just cleared path the whole way round.
Oh, and there he gains another. And that's P3. This is unbelievable. What a drive, really, from Aaron Kirby. And now here he is, already challenging for the lead. James Bostock is dropped down compared to Carl Lukeman, who was very quick last time round 2. Don't forget that. Biggle says, hey Dan, James is causing the squid track on the other channel. Oh, this is a reference. Oh yeah, you don't get this, but we had a whole discussion about what that track looked like. And I said it was a squid, they said it was something else. We're not going to name it on stream. But yeah, an insider joke here for the JP broadcasting team. Also John Sylvester, Callum is very quick. Indeed, Callum is very quick. He has been very quick throughout this whole race, really. Carl Lukeman is out in front at the moment. Aaron Kirby has already got past James Bostock. It's now, well, a general fight for P1 between these two. And he might well gain 13 positions from where he started and win race 1 and race 2. And that, Callum, will give him so much confidence going into Sunday.
Kirby's pace so far today has been absolutely fantastic. And same for Daan Pepels, and I think it's going to be between them two. Really going to be push and shove come Sunday. Friendly nudges between the two. Just to sort of sizing each other up, because like I said, that's all Thursdays are about, sizing each other up and seeing what you can get out of the car ready for Sunday's live racing session. So it's all about what you can drain out of the car, how much you can get out of these tyres around the track, no matter how hot it is. I will add, you got to see what you can get out of the car, even if it is 60 something degrees Celsius. It's always good to have these little test sessions, and with the pace of Kirby and Brown from today, it's really shaping up to be a very good session this Sunday. So I'm looking forward to the racing there.
Yeah, well, I have just been informed by Biggles that they couldn't quite hear you, and I suspect that has happened once the lovely Discord kicked me out of the session, or out of the voice chat that we were in, and it took the wrong pod file or file pod. So they can hear you now, but thank you, of course, Biggles, for letting me know. How's the TRG racing going? Asks Biggles. Well, if you ask Aaron Kirby, really well. If you ask Mark Brown, not as well. Had a good comeback drive from race 1. Also, his race was done by turn 1. That time round, really. It was only a comeback drive ever since. I think have Marcus Richardson off track big times. He's going to drop all the way down. Watch rejoining, sir, and he's going to do so carefully. It's not going to be in the way of anyone else, but drops down to P11. So yeah, not the best time for Marcus Richardson there. Aaron Kirby, however, the race leader. Oh no! What has happened to him there? Explain that one. Gonna have a look at it. Aaron Kirby. Oh, turn 1. There we go. He's gonna go all onto the grass. No stopping it there. Bonk. Yep. Yeah. Turn 1 again. We've said it a couple of times. And John says I can hear him now. So yeah, luckily they can. But yeah, I'm sorry for that. Some sound issues, but that's it. The racing so far has been incredible. Well, I don't think that took anything away from the racing. Aaron Kirby is going to try and make his way up, but I don't think he's going to win his second race in a row. He's also dropped down a couple of positions, and I think it's Carl Lukeman who's now going to take revenge for race number 1.
Yeah, it's a fantastic drive, I have to admit, from Lukeman up at the top. It's good to see a mix-up. It's a shame to see Kirby go off in the way he did, but it's definitely shaping up to be a nice second race here as we're just passing getting up to the 7th minute mark. So getting around halfway through this race. Kirby, now that he's in 7th, can he do what Mark Brown did though? Can he develop a comeback drive with his pace and try and keep the consistency up and try and get back up the field and aim for a podium spot. He might see Mark Brown as a bit of inspiration there from race 1 and try and copy the same thing and max out these tyres in this extreme heat today.
Yeah, and once again, oh, you've mentioned it, I've got to show it now. 63 degrees track temp. Biggles, have you ever seen anything like it? 63 degrees track temp out here at Oran Point. And even, Biggles, since you are from Australia, is this normal? 63 degrees Celsius, centigrade. In Australia, I know it's hot, but I don't think it's that hot usually. So yeah, let us know in chat if you are there, Dean Biggles, Mr. Dan Under from JPB. You know, it's very hot out on track at the moment, and I don't think it's been ever this hot in Australia, really, any track. Usually, when the track is this hot, you see the track tear apart. You can see the asphalt just tear away under the tires. The tires will just stick to the track. But yeah, it seems like it is true for the second race in a row. 63 degrees centigrade. And, well, they're dealing with it. However, it is making life a bit more difficult for these drivers. And Scott Kostridge he hasn't been the quickest here this evening, Callum, but he has been very consistent.
He has, yeah, indeed. And I was just looking at the amount of overtakes, as you can see there on the left-hand side next to the driver number. You can see that actually Kostridge is one of the cars out there that perform the most overtakes. Aaron Kirby would be in the lead of that prior to the incident he had coming up into turn 1. But with Kostridge overtaking 8 cars, this has definitely got to be something positive to look forward to for Sunday, because like you say, even in race 1 there was consistency there, and overall Kostridge has had a good day so far. Hopefully it's not commentator's curse, so touching wood while I say this, and hopefully he can bring it across the line, possibly even aim for a podium. I have noticed that Bostock though is trying to close the gap and slowly closing the gap to first place, so it's still pretty tight between the top 4 there. It's going to be fun to watch these guys come across the line in the end. We've got just over 5 minutes to go in this race, so it's going to bring a little bit of a tense ending, I think, especially between a few of these guys up the top, but hopefully all is clean and fair, ready for Sunday.
Oh, this is Guy Linton going off track, and he's going to drive in the opposite direction for a little second. And yeah, well, not what you want to see if you're Guy Linton, really. And unfortunately, should just run off track, and then, you know, there was no holding it once the car has spun you round like that, sadly.
The downfall with these cars is once they touch the grass, that's it. It pulls you over, and unfortunately, that's all she wrote. That's all you can do.
You have, however, James Bostock, and I'm going to blame this on you. You mentioned the gap to P1 coming down, and the gap has since ever grown a second in this last lap. Yeah. I thought we were going to see an exciting fight, but once you've mentioned it, James Bostock thought, well, you know, I'm just going to ease it off, and I'm going to have my fight with Mark Robinson behind me, who's going to try and close the gap to James. If he can do that, though, that's going to be the question. But yeah, of course, commentator curse coming in a different way then.
Yeah, I have to admit, I think I've taken one out of James's book there, because I know he's
done
done it a couple of times. If you have to take
one, this is the best one. You'd rather jinx a battle than jinx someone's race completely, like I've done a couple of times. So yeah.
That's very true, yeah. I'd rather see someone lose a position rather than lose a fight against a barrier or something, that's for sure.
I mean, if you're going to go on a fight with a barrier, usually you're the one coming out losing that. I haven't seen it very often where you hit a barrier and you come out as winner. So yeah, it's usually when you do that, you come out as loser.
Yeah, I have to admit, I've been experimenting with that, and I've not had much luck so far, so I'm trying to find new ways every day to beat the wall, and one day I will find a way to just march through it, but so far I have not come to that conclusion.
I mean, those concrete walls on the right hand side on the exit of the last corner, boy, if you hit those, your race is done. Your race is done and dusted, and your car is going to be toast as iRacing likes to say. Mark Robinson, he's now all over the back of James Bostock. This is the fight for P2. Is this, however, going to allow Scott Kostridge with a chance of snatching that position away on the inside? I think it's I think Gary Linton allowing everyone past nicely there, not being in the way of everyone else. And well, Johnston, I think, it is showing a lap down too, but that's false information, is it not? Yeah, it is. I don't think he's a lap down, is he? No, he is not. This is false information.
No, not
he's
quite
not
yet.
a lap down.
Gary Linton's the only one that's a lap down at this moment in time, with Mark Brown and Sean Clark not out on track at all at the moment.
Nicholas Newtonen, excuse me, also doing pretty well. It's not like he's done too bad here this evening, honestly. I think Nicholas Newton has done as much as he could do, and we'll give him some confidence. If he can get top 5, if he can snatch away the top 5 from David Smith ahead of him. He finished in the top 5 twice this evening, and that wouldn't be bad for him, I think. Just some good, consistent driving from him.
Yeah, not bad at all, being just behind the man with arguably the best selfie picture in the entire league. But one thing I will say is Nicholas Newton, is he taking one out of Ferrari's F1 book there and going for a full carbon fibre car? Is that giving him a bit of lightweight, or is that just his texture? Looks like a full carbon fibre car to me.
Yeah.
A bit of lightweight tactics going on there, just like they've got on the Ferrari F1 garage at the minute. I think that's what's going on here. He's trying to get a bit quicker. Full carbon fibre loadout. Looks very nice, though, I have to admit, even in the sun.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it has something to it, but I feel like just the livery on the car just makes the car more personal. Now it's just a chassis for me, really. And I don't know if I like it. It has something to it. It's not bad, but I don't know if I like it. If you then go to Mr. Crossy, who's now on the podium, then I mean, take for that what you will. But this is the complete opposite end of the spectrum for the in terms of delivery.
Yeah, it's really nice to see though, because that is by far one of my favourites out there on track tonight. So it's nice to see a mix from the liveries we saw last week as well. So it's good to see these drivers mixing and matching. You know, just back things up a little bit each week. So it's enjoyable to see these cars going around in their new designs, with Kostrick putting on a good display so far, up 9 places now. David Smith following that up 7. Kirby's dropped down 1, I believe. He's now only up 6 rather than 7 like earlier. So there's been a good amount of overtakes for a lot of the pack tonight. So race 2 is definitely a lot of positives coming from that. For the cars that didn't make it out for race 2, they raced in race 1, and they had some good intel from that, I imagine, as well.
You know, gathering information is the most important thing here, but for Carl Lugman, he's taking revenge. Compared to race number 1, he's going to come across the line to win this time round, and it's not going to be Aaron Kirby. He's down in 8th. It looked for a second he was going to challenge him, but Aaron is down in P8, while Carl Lugman takes his victory ahead of James Bostock in P3 in the best livery of this evening, takes a podium. Now, is he going to take this car to podium lane, victory lane, however you want to call it? Because if so, I want a picture with that car. Mark Robinson is in P5 ahead of behind David Smith. Nicholas Newton in P6. Mark Proctor in P7, and Aaron Kirby across the line in P8. He's going to go to turn number 1. He's going to say, "You were the reason I lost this race, and I hate you." There it is. There's the barrier on the right-hand side. The green tires on the right-hand side. That is where he lost this race. Quite a hard hit, so I'm surprised he could even continue with that one. Everyone across the line. Let's take a look at our results here this evening for race number 2, the feature race here this evening. And it is going to be Carl Lugman who wins ahead of James Bostock in P2, Scott Kostridge in P3, David Smith in P4, Mark Robinson in P5, Nicholas Newton in P6, Mark Proctor P7, 8th is Aaron Kirby, in 9th Marcus Richardson, 10th Andy West, Johnston in P11, Gary Linton P12, Sean Clark and Mark Brown not getting to the checkered flag. All in all, I would say, Callum, not a bad evening of racing. And I think for a lot of drivers, some positives here to take away.
Yeah, I think some fantastic positives for a lot of the drivers that have been out there tonight, and some positives as well for those watching us tonight here for some excitement into Sunday's race, because just the display from what we saw both in race 1 and race 2, how close this can be with the pace from the likes of Mark Brown, Aaron Kirby, but also we had an incident from both of those names as well. So their pace is good, but we did have incidents in the same corner from both cars,
well, that's
but
what
in
you
two
have to
separate
learn,
races.
Well, that's kind of what this is for, isn't it? Just to find those boundaries, see where you can run too wide, except that 4 wide moment down to turn 1 at the start of race 2. That was like, you just know, you don't even have to try it. You just know that that is not going to work. So you don't know why they would try that. But in the end, 2 drivers had to go. And funnily enough, it were the 2 drivers on the inside that went off. Just got no swiped a bit and just went off. So, Callum, just give me one sentence to sum up this evening.
Exhilarating racing, keep calm. 2 completely different things, but they're both very important.
Well, I'm going to go with super, extremely, ultra, super duper heat. There we go. That's it.
I can't argue with that. I think you've won that. I didn't pick that up, and I have to admit, I think you've won on that one.
And here we go. On the right-hand side, you can see once again, 63 degrees track temp in the end was where the drivers finished with. I'm going to thank you all for watching. John, thank you for sticking with us. He says, thanks, guys. Enjoyed that. So did we. It was an incredible evening of racing. So come back next week for round number 9 and round number 10. Well, the second to last evening of the GR86. So I'm going to thank you all for watching. Biggles, thank you for coming in chat too, letting us know that there were some audio issues. And yeah, like I said, thank you for watching. It's been incredible to have you. Thank you to everyone who made it possible. Thank you for you, Callum, for being in the booth with me. I'm going to thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.